Hi guys, and welcome back to our second lesson in the circle topic. Today you can see that we are going to be revising area. So in order to calculate the area, we are going to need our area formula. So that is given by A equals pi times by r squared. So this time it does matter what order we are writing our numbers in because it is only r that is being squared. And I'll show you what I mean with an example. So with r being our radius, the radius goes from the centre out to one edge of the circle. So here I'm going to be doing area equals pi times by my 10 squared. Only 10 is being squared, so I'm doing pi times by 100. And if I pop that into my calculator, we are going to get 314.159. But remember, we always need to read the question carefully. We are going to one decimal place, so it is going to be 314.2. I need to match up with my units, centimetres, but this time it's area that I'm doing, so it needs to be squared. Area is for a two-dimensional shape, so I need to put a 2 at the top of my unit there, centimetres squared. For our second example then, it's still area equals pi r squared. So I'm doing pi times by 7 squared. 7 squared, we should know, is 49. And then we are going to pop that into our calculator to give us 153.938. And again, it's one decimal place. So the 3 tells me to round that 9. So the 3 tells me to keep that 9 as it is, so it is 153.9 centimetres squared again. For our final one, we have got 4 metres. So if that is my diameter, we know that the radius is half of that. So our radius is going to be the 4 divided by 2, and that's going to give us 2 metres. So area is equal to pi r squared. So we've got pi times by 2 squared. And so 2 squared gives us 4. If I pop that into my calculator then, gives us 12.566. The 6 tells us we need to round up to 12.6. This time my units were metres, so my final answer is going to be metres squared. Now we are going to calculate the area to 3 significant figures. So we start off the same way. Area equals pi r squared. So that's going to be pi times by 9 squared. And 9 squared gives us 81. Pi times by 81 gives us 254.469. If it's 3 significant figures, I am looking for my 3 highest place values. So in this case, it's 2, 5 and 4. The next digit then, the 4, tells us to stay the same. 2, 5, 4. And for my significant figures, I don't want to put a decimal point after this. I don't want to fill anything else in because that is my 3 significant figures there. I'm looking for my units, so that's metres, and area means that it's got to be metres squared. For this example, we have been given the diameter is 13, so our radius is half of 13, which is going to be 6.5 centimetres. So we've got area is equal to pi r squared. So we're doing pi times by our 6.5 squared. So 6.5 squared then is going to give us 42.25. And after that we multiply that by pi, and that is going to give us 132.732. It was 3 significant figures, so my 3 highest place values are the 1, 3 and the 2. 7 tells us to round up, so we're going to go to 133, and I don't want any decimal places because they'll then count as significant figures. So my 133 is my answer. The only other thing I need is my centimetres, and because it's area, it's centimetres squared. Now we have got section 1, so you are calculating the area of each of these circles here to 1 decimal place. It's up to you if you want to save all the questions until the end, or if you want to pause the video here and work through section 1 now. Okay, now we need to find the total area of these shapes. So the first thing we've got here is a semicircle. So our area of a full circle is pi r squared, but we know that a semicircle is half of our full circle, so we are going to divide by 2. What we are then doing is pi times by our radius squared. So here the 16 goes from one side of the circle straight through, technically that would be the centre of our full circle, and then out to the other side. So 16 is our diameter. That means that our radius is half of 16, so it is 8. And then we are still dividing by 2. We are going to do pi times by 64 then, and divide it by 2. The way that I would type this into my calculator would be my pi times by 64, hit equals to get an answer, and I get about 201. We then divide it by 2, and that gives me 100.530. I've not been asked for any decimal place, but for this one I'm just going to round it to 1 decimal place. Again, it is centimetres, so it's centimetres squared. Hopefully you can spot for the middle example then that we have got a quarter circle. So we are going to use our pi r squared formula and then divide by 4 because it's a quarter of a full circle. If you think about extending the full circle out, it would come round, obviously much bigger than that. So our centre is here, and if we are going from the centre out to one edge, then that is our radius. So our radius here is 10. We don't need to half this number. And we are still dividing by 4. So that means we are doing pi times by 100 and dividing by 4. And that should give us about 78.539. And if I round that to just 1 decimal place, I'm going to get 78.5 centimetres squared. For our last example then, we should be able to notice that we have been split into a semicircle and a rectangle. So I'm going to start with my rectangle because it's the easiest formula. So area of a rectangle is just length times breadth. My length is 6 and my breadth here is 3. So that is going to give me 18, and it was metres, so metres squared. My area of the semicircle then was pi r squared divided by 2. And in this case, my diameter here of the circle is going to be 6. So my radius is going to be 3. So here I'm doing pi times by 3 squared and then dividing it by 2. We're doing pi times by 9 and dividing by 2. So that gives us 14.1 metres squared. Now that's not the total area though. My total area is going to be the area of my rectangle plus the area of my semicircle. So 18 plus 14.1 is going to give us 32.1 metres squared. Now it's your turn to try these 6 questions. Again, it's up to you if you want to pause the video and try that now, or if you would rather move on to the next bit and do all the questions at once. For our final example then, we are going to need to combine all of the skills that we have used so far. So here we are going to make a new doormat, and our doormat has to be made up of a rectangle and 2 semicircles. But the minute I see 2 semicircles, I should be thinking that 2 halves make 1 full circle. The material that we need is £4.15 for every 1 metre squared, and we want to know how much the mat will cost to make. So I'm just going to start with my area of a rectangle because that's my easiest formula. It's just L times B. So my length is my 1.5 and my breadth is 0.72. Remember, it's important to make sure that your units are all matching before we get started. So plugging that into my calculator then, 1.5 times by 0.72 is going to give me 1.08 metres squared. Then I am just going to do the area of a full circle because our two semicircles combined make one full circle. So my area of a circle is pi r squared, and in this case we know that from the top of the circle down to the bottom going through the centre is that 0.72, so that must be our diameter. That means our radius is half of that, so it's going to be 0.36. We are then doing pi times by 0.36 squared. And I always do the 0.36 squared first to make sure that it's only my radius that gets squared. I'm going to leave pi as it is, so 0.1296. When we multiply our radius squared by pi then, we are going to get a 0.407. Because my rectangle gave us 2 decimal places, I'm just going to round this to 2 decimal places, so I get 0.41 metres squared this time. Now what I need to do is find my total area, and that's going to be my 1.08 plus my 0.41, and that is going to give us 1.49 metres squared. We are told that it is £4.15 for every 1 metre squared. Now, I can't buy half of a metre squared or a portion of it. It's got to be in whole lots of metres squared. So we would need to round up. So even though the 4 would usually tell us to round down, I'm going to need 2 metres squared of material. So to get the cost, I am going to do my £4.15 multiplied by 2, and that is going to give us £8.30 for the total cost of our new mat. Finally, section 3 is just 2 questions. They are more like what we have just done in that previous example. These are word problems. In your exam, these are typically worth quite a few marks, maybe 3, 4, 5 marks. So it's really important that you read the questions carefully, you answer it fully, and you check if you need to round to anything as well. Try your best with these questions. I know we can do this, and remember to pop a wee comment in our Teams chat if you need help with anything. Try your best, and I will see you in our next video.